Dinesh Puravankara from Coca-Cola. He's going to talk about transitioning your front of pack labeling in Canada. Thank you very much.
Greetings, my esteemed fellow industry professionals, and to all the virtual audience who are listening to us too. I am incredibly honored to be standing before you today to speak at this 13th annual Canadian Summit on Food Regulations. Some of you would remember me from the last year where I spoke about supplemented food regulations. And if you can raise your hands, it would be great who was there last year. So great, thanks for coming back. And thanks to all of you who are new and coming for the first time. My name is Dinesh Puravankara, and I had the privilege of leading the Scientific and Regulatory Affairs Department in the Coca-Cola company, most widely recognized brand in the world. I'm thrilled to be part of this conversation on the front of pack regulations and looking forward to our interactions. Just a brief background about me. I've been with the company almost 22 years, but I've traveled different roles in the company, put different hats. So I was talking to somebody else, somebody in the group, that I started my career in the Coca-Cola in the quality system. So I was one among you doing all those as a quality assurance supervisor in the plant. And then I moved on into quality auditor and then into regulatory field for the last 10 years. So just wanted to bring that up. And also, I wanted to let you know that I am also teaching a course in Michigan State University on Canadian regulations as a guest lecture. So highly recommend that course if you are interested to take any regulatory courses. In the next 20 minutes or so, it will be my pleasure to guide you through following points. So first of all, I would like to make you aware of the complexity of this newly introduced FOP regulations. And then I'm going to talk about how these regulations will be affecting your brands, your branding, and how is it going to affect your claims. And then what are the potential challenges with these regulations when we start implementing this? My hope is by the end of this discussion, each one of you will be empowered to make decisions when you go out into the grocery aisle and see those symbols. You'll understand what it is and what decisions can you make. And also, share this knowledge with your folks, your family and your colleagues, because this is new regulations and a lot of people don't know what it is. Because it is our collective responsibility to understand these regulatory changes and apply this knowledge not only for our own health, but also for the consumers who trust our brands and the brand promise. Because food, after all, is the central part of our life. So let's move on. Oops. Did I go the other way? Okay. So the agenda is, I'll give you a brief summary of the details of the regulations, some examples, transition timeline, and next steps. Okay, in the summary, many of you would know that these regulations were published at the same time as supplemented food regulations, July 2022, with an implementing date or a transition date of January 1st, 2026, so which is not far away. We only have 1 year, few days left to comply with these new regulations. There are 3 nutrients of concerns that we have to be aware of. If you can remember, it's 3 S, so saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. So you have to be very careful when you say sugar. We are talking about total sugars here, not added sugars. The nutrients of concern must be identified through a front of pack symbol, which I have shown you in that slide here. And once it reaches certain threshold, which I'll talk about to you what threshold you have to reach to get to and put that symbol on the front of pack. So, but this regulation also had some good points for us. So in the PDP, we used to have the, with aspartame or with sucralose statements. That is not required anymore with these new regulations. And on the back of the pack, you used to have quantitative declaration of those sweeteners, and that is not required either. So I think we got the wrong slide here. So can you switch the slide? I think there was a slide on the global trends. Sorry about the technical difficulties. While they are pulling up those slides, I just wanted to show you this is a new package that we have just released. It's not in the market yet, but I was able to get a hold of it. You'll see the front of pack symbol right on the top with a magnifying glass. Yeah, if you can go to the, no, one more. No, I'll manage. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, what is front of pack regulations and what does it mean? So the front of pack regulation, the purpose is to provide clear, accessible nutritional information on the front of package of foods. So what are the key nutrients that, as I described you, these are saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. And what's the consumer benefit? It is basically easier identification of food options for you to make sure that you know which food contains sugar, saturated fat, or sodium, and quick decision making at the point of purchase. The examples of regulatory, as I told you, we have already implemented this regulation in Canada. US is actually moving towards this regulation, and as we speak, this regulation is in the White House for approval. The health impact of this regulation is basically to reduce diet-related diseases like obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And the global trend, which I'm going to show you in the next slide, is about increasing adoption of FOP labeling regulations worldwide. So if you can see here a chart which kind of tells you what is happening in the world. On the left-hand side, can somebody tell me where did FOP regulations started first? Chile, 2016. So that's the first country which started the FOP regulations. And then it kind of spread like a wildfire to all the other South American countries. And now pretty much every country has their own FOP regulations. And if you can see on the left-hand side, all that is in black and white are mandatory regulations, and all the other that you see in the green are voluntary, industry proposed, codes, I would say. So as you can see, there's a divide there that, Canada went with the South American, regulations, and we adopted this in July of 2022, and now we have this regulation in force. So, if you have a product in market, you can still have the product without the FOP label, but come January 1st, 2026, whatever you produce in the manufacturing plant has to comply with these regulations. So what's the regulatory framework for this FOP regulations? There are a lot of guidance documents, a lot of directories of the labels. So these are the main ones that you need to be aware of. If you can, I think this presentation would be shared, so you can go to the link and you can find out what are these regulations and how it affects, and there are some guidance documents associated with these regulations. A lot of information that to digest, but these are the places that you need to go to understand about these regulations. So this one I talked about, it already came into effect in July 2022, and this is the symbol. So summary, for example, on the one good thing about this regulation, we are able to make the free of sugar claim and zero sugar claim for products that meet low energy and calorie criteria. I don't know if you guys remember in the old, like current regulation, or I would say old regulations, you're not allowed to make a zero sugar claim unless you meet two criteria, that is less than 0.5 grams of sugar and less than 5 calories. So that 5 calories is now 40 calories. So we are able to make free of sugar claim, which is a good thing about these regulations. Dairy is largely exempt, thanks to the work from DPAC through advocacy efforts. Dairy was exempted, so we don't need a FOP symbol on the dairy products like 2% milk or 1% milk, even though some of them would have high saturated fat, because it's one of the food that people consume every day, and you don't want to have FOP symbol on the front of pack that people will not understand what this means to them. And then 100% juice is not exempt. So the juices will have those symbols because, as I said, it's not the added sugar, it's the total sugar that is more important. So as long as you meet the total sugar of 15% DV, you'll have to put the FOP symbol. So as a timeline of how this regulation came into effect, so 2016, healthy eating strategy. I don't know if some of you would remember this. Health Canada started this healthy eating strategy, and then they had pre-consultations in 2016, 2017. So Health Canada came out with a pre-consultation and proposal for mandatory FOP regulations. And then 2018, they actually came up with the CG1. And then after that, we know what happened. The COVID hit, and it kind of delayed, and regulations was finally published in 2022 in CG2, Canada Gazette 2. So what are the nutrients of concerns that we have to be aware of is, like I said, 3 S's, saturated fat, sugar, and sodium, total sugars. For general prepackaged food, it's 15% daily value. That is the threshold. Whether it is sugar, saturated fat, or sodium, if it exceeds the 15% DV, then the FOP symbol has to be on the front of pack. For certain foods, there are some lower numbers. For example, foods with small reference amount, like less than 30 grams per ml, you need 10% DV. And for main dishes, there is 30% DV. So main dishes is like a spaghetti, or foods with small reference size would be something like a beef jerky or something like that. And I have put in the appropriate regulatory reference, like B001350 subsection 1 and 2 in the FDR, where these informations are actually present in the regulations. This is a FOP journey that I wanted to show you. When Health Canada started doing the consultations, there were several symbols that they proposed. As you can see, there were some scary symbols like stop signs with red and other things. But through the advocacy efforts of CBA and FHCP and all the other folks in the room, we were able to come up with this magnifying glass, and which is a compromise from the regulation perspective and the industry perspective. So right now, if you can imagine, if it was on the left-hand side like a stop symbol, which you have seen in Mexico and Chile and other places, they have already gone with that stop symbol. So we were able to do this advocacy, and this is what we have, and this is the journey that we came through. Several discussions happened during this process to get to what we have in this slide. And the section is B01355 subsection 2 in the Food and Drug Regulations. So where do you place the FOP symbol? That's a very important question. So symbol will be required anywhere within the top half of the PDP. I hope you all understand. Probably some of you may not, but PDP is Principal Display Panel. So anything on the label that you see, it has to be on the top 50% of that PDP. And if the size of that symbol is proportional to the principal display surface, not the display panel, but the principal display surface. So this entire area that is the package is facing. So the problem with this is, if you have a small label, it's not the size of the label that determines the size of the FOP symbol. It's the entire surface of this package that will determine the FOP symbol. So very important point, but if you have a product with a very small label, it's going to be a big symbol in front of that pack. So there are, like I said, exemptions. Health-based exemptions are basically dairy. Like I said, plain milk, most cheese, plain yogurt, buttermilk, and kefir are exempted. Some technical exemptions, so products that are not consumer-facing, for example, a bag in a box doesn't require a FOP symbol because it's not consumer-facing. And then practical exemptions, a package of sugar or a package of salt, you don't want FOP symbol on the top because you know that's going to be sugar or salt, right? So there is no FOP symbol on that. So, which is good. I think they had some common sense there, not to have that on those, sugar and salt containers. So here I'm going to talk about some claims restrictions. So all nutrient claims related to saturated fat, sugar, and sodium, as set out in the table of permitted nutrient content statements and claims, are prohibited in the PDP. Prohibited in the PDP. Then, when it carries a symbol to identify a food as high in particular nutrient except for reduced in claims. There's a lot of wordings there, but I wanted to give you, break it down. I have a claim, it's called no added sugar here. And this product will contain a FOP symbol because it contains more than 15% daily value of sugar. So if you have a FOP symbol here, because it's high in sugar, you cannot say no added sugar, even though it's a true statement that there is no added sugar in this product. So that's the implication of this regulation. So that's what it means. So if you have anything like a high in sugar, high in salt, high in saturated fat, you cannot make any claim regarding that particular nutrient, except reduced in sugar when you meet those 25% requirement of reduction claim. And then there are some restrictions on the size as well. What are the sizes of those claims? So there is a limits on the size. Size, when I mean by size, is the height, So any size on the health-related representation or any statement or claim displayed on the PDP that carries a symbol, there is like maximum permitted. So the maximum permitted height of the letters in the claim statements or representation depends upon whether the nutrients they feature is declared in the symbols. For example, if you have sugar as a high, and if you want to put reduced in sugar, it cannot be more than twice the amount of that particular size of high in sugar. So those are some of the very technical details of this regulation. So you have to be really careful when you work with your graphic agencies to understand how they understand it and interpret the regulation so that you don't be non-compliant with the claims, the size of the claims in your PDP. Some prohibitions where you cannot make this FOP regulations, which is described in the section 350, subsection 15 of FDR. Products intended solely for infants, 6 months of age or older, but less than 1 year of age, you cannot put FOP. Human milk fortifiers, human milk substitutes, infant formula, food represents containing human milk substitute, formula, liquid diets as defined in section 24, which Dino talked about the other day, meal replacements, nutritional supplements, food represented by protein-restricted diets. So these are some of the things that you cannot put FOP symbols. Food represented for low-calorie diets, and food represented for use in low-energy diets. I'm going to show you some examples. I did show you the can here, which is a Fanta. You have the symbol right here with a high in sugar statement. But I went into the market recently, and there are also products in the market that already have put those symbols. So in this particular one, Clamato, I think it's tomatoes, Clamato, they have the high in sodium symbol. So that was interesting to see it in the no-frill store. And then here you see some, chocolates, definitely saturated fat and sugar. Even the coconut milk, would you imagine that coconut will have the symbol? But it has, because it has high in saturated fat. Again, chocolates. I don't know how much it will, like many of you said, how is it going to impact the sales? Depends on how the consumer takes it, If a consumer is going to buy a chocolate, he's not going to think that that doesn't have sugar. Or if he wants to buy a Fanta, he knows that he or she knows that that has sugar. So we'll see how the product sales is impacted, but so that's a very good, we don't know how it's going to be performing in the market. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of transitional provisions here. Regulations came into force in July of 2022, and the transition period will end in December 2025, December 31st. So we are all working very hard to meet this, regulations. As we know, we have a multiple variety of products, and we are actually transitioning around 450 SKUs. So it's a humongous task. It costs a lot of money for the industry to be compliant. We just finished the 2016 labeling regulations, and when after that, we just started doing this one. Transitional provisions for different components of the package, we have to make sure that all those transitional provisions are considered. Vitamin D has been increased in dairy, so in milk you can add more vitamin D now, and you can make excellent vitamin D claim, which is a great. And then, like I said, the phenylalanine statement are still needed, but you don't need the sweetness statement on the front of pack. And these are all independent of each other, so you can start doing one at a time. And as you know, some of the marketings and the brand team do not want this implemented right away because they want to wait till the end. But depends upon the number of SKU you have. You can't get everything done in the December timeframe, right? So you have to start rolling some of those early products into the market right January of next year. During the transition period, which we are in right now, and the next year, CFIA would make efforts which will be directed towards education and compliance promotion with the new regulations. So as we know, right now there is no talk about extending the time period, so we have to comply with that December 2025 timeline. As of January 1, 2026, any product that you produce, any prepackaged food products that is to be manufactured or imported should meet this regulation. So if it is not, then you're non-compliant. So CFIA will write up, even if it is something that's coming from US. Foods prepackaged in-store and sold by retailers, so that also needs to comply. Comply with these new regulations. Product imported, manufactured in Canada and packaged at retail before January 1st, 2026 can continue to be sold. So even after January 2026 first, if the product is in the shelf, you don't have to pull it back. It can be sold through. But whatever you produce in your manufacturing plant has to meet these new regulations. Like I said, the other changes and future implications, I already talked about the principal display panel not requiring aspartame and sucralose and asulfame, potassium, and neotame. They are repealed, so you don't have to put that statement. Health Canada has also done some changes to the potassium and sodium values for specific age groups in the table of daily values. So if you are doing this regulatory change, make sure that you understand the sodium and potassium DVs are changed. So you may want to do that as well. You don't have to do it multiple times. So take that into consideration. And also there is a provision to increase the vitamin D in milk, as I said. So do that as well, so that you have to do only one label change, incorporating all those requirements from Health Canada. So other thing I wanted to talk about is impact of this front of pack regulations on future regulations, what's going to come down. We are talking about marketing to children's, and Mark was recently in one of the Senate committee meetings, and we talked about marketing to kids, and their reference point for this regulation is also the high in and low in, right? So the 5% DV is what they are targeting. If you have anything more than 5% DV, sugar, saturated fats, or sodium, then you cannot advertise that product to kids. That's the path we are going to. This is still in consultation stage. We were expecting the CG2 to come any time this year, but I don't think it's going to happen this year, probably Q1 of 2025. We'll see that coming. And as you know, there is a private member bill as well, which is called Bill C-252, which is a bill that is passed by one of the MP. I forgot the name, but that, you remember? Latencia, yeah. So that private member bill is going to be, passed in the Senate, and once that bill is passed, the Health Canada has to come up with some regulations to make sure that the advertising to kids is restricted. So as you can see, the implications of one regulations on different parts of the advertisements and other things. And it can be also sometime related to the ultra-processed food at some point. Just you never know what's going to happen in the future. So that's my presentations, and I think I've covered most of the topic, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Hello. My question was related to whether there will be a public health education program on the front of pack symbol, just so the general population, the general public understand what it's all about.
Yeah, actually there is a public health education already happened. I'm pretty sure you guys must have missed it. So Health Canada has already done that through media, probably through social media, but nobody really got that message, and the consumers don't know what it is. and they will be confused when they see this. I was in the store last week with my wife, and then my wife looked at it and said, "Oh, high saturated fat, I want to buy this." So this is the first real knee-jerk reaction of all the consumers. So you'll see a blip in the sales for sure, but eventually people will get it. I don't know, I've been to Mexico recently, Mexico City. I don't know how many of you been there. I went into a retail stores. I saw all the products with those stop symbols, and what can you make out of it? So it's like California Prop 65 rule, where you can see it causes cancer, whatever you touch. So I think this is what is going to happen in our shelves very soon, like in next year or so. You'll see all the products with this symbol, either it is sodium, saturated fat, or sugar. And then I don't know what public would be, what informed decision they can make when they see symbol everywhere. So.
Any other question? All right, right over here.
And Dinesh, could you take a look on the screen down below you? There's on the screen in front of you, down below, there should be 3 questions appearing on that screen.
Oh,
if you want to
okay.
answer those.
So this
got
is just a comment, not a question. I was at Niagara Falls for the CMC CFIA joint meeting at the end of October, and CFIA indicated at that meeting that they would allow for some flexibility of implementation with action plans for using up labels, because they don't want to get caught up in throwing out of packaging, because that doesn't meet our environmental mandate. So similar to how they handled the changes with the last round of label updates, they have indicated that they would have some flexibility. They didn't give any specifics.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to, it's an environmental waste to throw away so many labels, and it's a cost for the company to transition to this. So we always had this argument about using up these labels till we run out, but we haven't got a very confirmed answer from either, from CFIA that we could use that. Good point, thank you. Sorry, I have a question here. Does symbol need to be on the pack when advertising, social media, TV, the product starting January 2026? That's a good question. So what the question is about, does it have to be on the social media like e-commerce? So, I mean, it's very interpretative. So as long as you have that symbol on the prepackaged food, that's good. But if you're going to sell in e-commerce and people are going to make the decision based on the image, then I would recommend that you put that symbol on the e-commerce webpage. But for POS or any other advertisement, I don't think that is required, because it's not prepackaged food. We are not talking about labeling there. So that's the answer for that. Hope that if you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. Does the symbol need to be on advertisement in restaurants? No. This is not a menu labeling or anything like that, so it doesn't have to be. If the package has multiple PDPs, does the FOP symbol need to appear on each PDP? Yes. So PDPs are defined, so once you have a PDP defined, it has to be there. Yeah.
How would you say companies, and maybe from your experience, you're approaching the rounding rules? So if you get to 14.6% DV, would you say there's sort of we're not considering that is hitting the threshold, it's not 15, even though on label it would round to 15% DV?
So it depends upon your rounding rules. So if it is certain rounding rules apply, so in your particular serving size, you'll have to see what the calorie levels are, or the DV percentage are, sorry, and the sugar and sodium and saturated fat. And if your rounding rules dictate you to round to 15% DV, you will have to comply with, even though if it is less than 15. So it's the rounding rules that would decide whether you have to put the FOP symbol or not.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
Right over here.
Thanks for the presentation. Given that this originated from Latin America, do you see in the near future that an expansion of the criteria to other elements?
Sorry, I didn't get the question, so.
Basically, since the trend of needing the front of pack labeling originated from Latin
Chile.
America, and do you foresee an expansion of the critical list beyond sugars, fats, and sodium in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, the Latin America has gone a step further. They've also put, sweeteners in that category, right? Like aspartames and all those sweeteners. So, it all depends upon the regulator to see where the risk is and to the population. Not based on science, aspartame and all the other sweeteners are safe, but it's based on, the public perception. So, I don't see that will happen here in Canada, but US is going through the process of adopting the front of pack regulations. And good thing about there is what I understand is they are not going based on total sugar, but on added sugar, which is a better thing. Other European countries have not started doing it, but eventually, it will get there. The fear that I have is the FOPs, regulations will be used for taxing purposes, which is a big thing, like, so if they start taxing based on sugar content or sodium content or saturated fat, that's going to affect the industry a lot.
Any other question?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate the, thank you.